piece, so this is a collaboration piece. So I kind of wanted to talk about how I collaborate with other artists, specifically in Babe Walls, since this is a huge part of, my passion and what I do as an artist in the Denver area. So in 2021, we held our Babe Walls Festival in Arvada, Colorado. And we worked specifically with the city. They paid for us to come in, and we paid for 30 artists to come in and do collaborations of, I think we had 15 or 16 installs. We had a couple extras come in at the end, and then we had a youth wall as well, which is something we always incorporate into our festivals. Space for the youth, we call them Future Babes. So we always have a space for them. Each artist is paired based on their styles. So we really like to put together an abstract artist and a realism artist, or a graphic artist and a realism artist. Styles that are totally different, but they can come together and look really great. So I specifically chose an artist out of Columbus, Ohio. She is a tattoo artist and she's a friend of mine, but her stuff is very graphic. Lots of shapes, lots of bright colors, solid fills, and I knew with my realism that it would mesh really well together. That's what I try and do in my art. So collaborations to me are a really great way to grow and progress as an artist. It's like, you're blindsided into doing your own thing, which can be great sometimes, but and other times you kind of want some new inspiration and do something kind of like new and fun that you've never done before. So to be able to have another artist to work with and come in and kind of bounce some ideas off of yours can create this really beautiful thing. And so Babe Walls specifically has created really interesting collaborations that you'll never see again. It's like artists that don't work together normally come in and do something really cool. And it's a one of a kind, and it's really great. So this particular wall, we have full creative freedom for. So in Babe Walls, we don't restrict the artists in any sense. So as long as there's no full frontal nudity, nothing slanderous, they can do whatever they want to do. Most of the time, these artists are chosen based on their skill. So we'll try and place a more established artist with an up-and-coming artist to kind of create a little bit of mentorship in that scenario. Nicole was a newer mural artist. This was her first mural, and I had done probably 40 at that point. So I was like pretty established, and I felt like I could kind of teach her on how to do some things, and also to be able to take her vision, bring it to large scale. So the first thing that we kind of do is measure the wall. This is a longer wall, and it was under an underpass, like in between two underpasses on an intersection. And so this was the first wall along the bike trail that you saw coming under the tunnel. So we wanted it to be really bright, and we wanted it to be this really big focal point to come in and see the rest of all the murals along this walkway. So our process and inspiration, so Nicole kind of took the reins on this one, which is really great in a collaboration because there's always got to be one person that has to just like take the reins and just go with it. So Nicole kind of put the image to the left together. She knew my style. She knew that I wanted to work with a pronghorn. And so she kind of fit this together where she put her graphic eye shapes into these like doorways into space, kind of trippy. And then also be able to tie in these cacti to bring this like kind of deserty, bright feel to what we were trying to create. And so when she sent this image to the left on me, I then came back with the image on the right. So the stance of the pronghorn on the left, I just wasn't really digging. Again, like something I can't explain. It's just a feeling. I'm just like, I don't like this. So I just go through and try and find other images of pronghorn that I think would be really cool to do. So I ended up finding these images of these two pronghorn, profile, side view, and really liked how they sat. And then also kind of pulling in that prickly pear and blowing it up a little bit to make it a little bit more balanced. So this was a really fun one to do. We did this in 4 days. That was our timeline, which was really intense, and it was also in July, so very hot. So for our tools, we had to make sure that we had everything. So we couldn't use a lift in this particular spot because it was under a bridge and also in grass. So we had to use ladders. So thankfully it wasn't too tall, so we were able to kind of share a ladder and work on that together. She used brush paint, bucket paint, and then I used spray paint. So we were really able to work at the same time, and it helped kind of bring her crisp lines to life to be able to use those really fine brush strokes. And then we kind of worked together on some spray paint aspect. I think we ended up spraying the stars in the background, so she got to kind of learn how to use a spray can with different caps and be able to emulate that star feel. And so yeah, that was really fun. And so this is what we ended up doing and what ended up coming together. So you can see there's like a little bit of variation from what we ended up talking about doing in the beginning. And again, that's just a total feel on the wall. You put something up there and you're like, oh, actually this looks really terrible. I'm just gonna pull this out. That's really great about spray paint and aerosol is it's so pliable and so workable. You can just go over it, and you're not gonna see anything underneath. And then the same with the bucket paint too. This was Golden Paints, which is a really high-end outdoor mural paints. It's super opaque, really thick. I love working with them. But yeah, so this was kind of what we came up together. So the flower right under that pronghorn's chin, I had a lot of trouble with that one. And so there was a fellow artist who was coming around, and he does really great flowers, so it's really cool because I got to pull him in. He does aerosol, so he got to help me with how do I make this flower look a little bit more realistic and not flat. So hard lines, that's the trick in doing aerosol flowers is hard lines. So I think it turned out really great, and yeah, I was really excited about this one. And then this third piece, so this is a full show that I did in 2020. I kind of envisioned it and put it together in 2019. I was highly inspired by a couple of artists that are kind of in this area of the world. So Mark McGorry, I don't know if anybody knows who that is, and then Logan Maxwell Hagege. They're both like Western artists, horses, representing a lot of cowboys, a lot of indigenous people. But I was very inspired by that. But in my inspiration of them, noticing that, again, there's like not hardly any women that are represented. So, and I know they were out there. I know they were riding the range and doing all the same stuff that all the men were doing. So I felt like I really wanted to represent them in a series. And I don't live in the early 1900s anymore, so it's like really hard to just go to a ranch and get everybody in that whole attire that I was so inspired by. So I did some research, and I had a couple friends that were willing to do it, and I have a friend that lives down the street that has horses. And we live right below the South Table Mesa in Golden, Colorado. And so we kind of I had this vision where we take the horses and get costumes together and go up there, and I would do the photo shoot. I also really enjoy photography, and I have just started taking my own reference photos. Which has been really exciting, and I just feel more connected to the pieces that I'm doing. So there's that aspect too, where I was taking these images, taking these photos. I knew the people, I knew the horses, and all their new little nuances and cowlicks and stuff like that. So I was really able to capture everything I wanted to capture in something like this. So I ended up reaching out to, I don't know if you all know, but those it's like those photo booths, and you dress up in the old-timey wear, and they're usually in a sepia tone. So there was a lady in Golden that ran a shop like that. So I reached out to her, and I was like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this thing. Anyway, you would let me borrow these clothes for a day. Promise I won't steal them. And she totally trusted me and gave me all these really great clothes, and I thrifted a bunch of stuff too. And so yeah, we pulled up the horses and walked them all up there like a bunch of psychos and all of our garb, and they were all running around. But It was really great, but I had to make sure that like my lighting was correct, and so we ended up doing it in November around like between 1 and 3 p.m., which is like just when the sun is kind of like hitting over that arc on the west. So it really casts like that hard shadow, which is what I was looking for specifically in a lot of the lighting and the horses and the characters. I just used a camera of my own that I got whenever I was in college, and it worked really well. And then also the location, like Colorado is so inspiring. There's so much really great landscape everywhere, and it's really cool. So I was able to do this whole series and put this whole photo shoot together in a day. Took the photos, went through, edited them. Again, like, I can't explain the photos that really spoke to me or like why, but there were some photos that I was like, yes, these are the ones that I really want to do. And so I went through and painted them, and I did this whole series on wood panel that my partner built, all the wood panels, which is really great, and all acrylic paints. So when I do studio work, that's mostly what I'm doing, is working with acrylics. If I'm doing large scale stuff, I'm mostly working with aerosols. So.
The gallery.
Huh? Yes. Yeah, so the painting that I actually did with that image is at the Arthur Mitchell Gallery right now. So it's a different background. I was also really inspired by Ghost Ranch in Abiquiu, New Mexico. So I took a lot of pictures, and you can see in that painting that I used a Ghost Ranch background as the landscape behind this particular image. So yeah, I'm always just super inspired by Georgia O'Keeffe and just like her whole life work. So that was another really big inspiration for this particular show. I just wanted to show another example of a piece that I used. So this is a friend of mine, and just really enjoyed the way that the lighting hit the mane of the horse, like the top of her hat, the side of her hat, the bits on her jacket, and then the rump of the horse as well. It just like really spoke to me, and so I didn't want to do anything different than this piece. I just wanted to recreate this piece in a painting. And then I believe this painting sold just earlier this year. Yeah. Yeah, so it was really great. But yeah, so this is the painting that it ended up coming out as. So I try. I'm not perfect, but I try to get it as best as I can. But yeah, super fun to create, and realized that I really love painting rope. Rope was like really fun to do, all those little like rope textures. Also in my style, I felt like my studio work and my mural work can translate really well. Aerosols, a way that I can still show the texture of the hair and the feathers that I show in my studio work. So it really translated very well for me, and it was something I was able to pick up really fast because of. So here I am to talk about my show. So I am here in town because Cody has invited me to do a show at the Arthur Mitchell Museum. It opens tomorrow from 5 to 8 p.m. and I have 12 pieces, which we just added 2 more from a past show.
Okay, so we're like, put this in the rest.
Yeah, just to like, you know, bulk it up a little bit. But it's running for the month of November. And when does it close? Or end?
Just at the end of November.
At the end of November? Okay. Cool. So it's at 150 East Main Street, if you don't know where that is. But I've got new pieces. I've got some prints. This particular piece back behind all of the words, I ended up doing a run of prints of that. So there is a limited number, but I wanted to make sure to kind of base my show so it was totally accessible to everybody. So I have prints, and then I also have originals, and I also have stickers. So can hand those out as well.
It looks phenomenal. It's amazing. Amazing work. We've been working together for years, and it just, her growth rate has just been super fun to watch. Just what she's putting out right now is,
Thank you. But yeah, so I guess I'll talk a little bit about my inspiration behind this show. So there isn't a title to it, but I was very inspired by my trip to Standing Rock Reservation in August. They invited us there during their powwow, which is really inspiring to be a part of, and really felt super honored that they invited us to be there. And really noticed that a lot within their culture, they're using a lot of circles So the shapes of circles are always used in their drums and a lot of their cymbals. And so circles were something that kind of represented this like circle of life and everything that's connected. And so I wanted to make sure that circles were really represented in a lot of my pieces. So a lot of my pieces are circle wood panels. And if it wasn't a circle panel, I kind of did a circle like this barn swallow and kind of brought the barn swallows out from it. But this is the first show where it's not like a total theme on subject matter. I wanted to be able to leave it open to do kind of whatever I was feeling. I loved doing the Women of the West show, but I also felt very pigeonholed. It's like as an artist, I'm constantly thinking about new things I want to do. I'm always inspired. So for a show like that, where I was putting it together over the course of a year, I got bored towards the end and I just wanted to do different things. So with this show, I just made sure that I kind of wanted to keep, you know, the same inspiration of like lines and circles, but subject matter could change to whatever I was feeling whenever I picked up a new panel. So yeah, this show has really been really fun and exciting, and I feel like I could just kind of keep creating it, which as an artist, that's what you always want to do, is be stoked on your work and what you're doing. So yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. I just wanted to like leave some space for questions or comments or, you know, whatever you got, thoughts, where you're going to dinner, you know. Yes.
I'm wondering, have you done work in Pueblo?
I have not.
There's a really cool mural there on one of the buildings that just kind of stumbled on.
I've been in talks with the lady that runs the Levy mural project down in Pueblo, and she's super awesome, and we talked about maybe doing a Babe Walls collaboration at some point. So I know they were trying to have us there last year during their river surfing competition, which I didn't know was a thing, but it just didn't work out. But we're like still talking about it to do a project in the future. But we drove down there, like through there on the way here, and there's a lot of art through there. I didn't realize how much of an art scene it had. So yeah, it's super cool. Yeah, I mean there's a lot of art here too. There's a lot of artists in here. That's great.